Um, I think that's.
Out of here, ready to leave by 8. Okay. Okay. Turn your volume. We also kind of rearranged the agenda. If you look at the agenda, you'll see that one of the first things that we're gonna do in our meetings is we are going to adopt the use of a consent agenda. And a consent agenda just basically puts things in a packet that we all agree on. So like budget, treasurer's report. It's hopefully gonna cut down a lot of time and discussion with the commissioners. Even resolutions that are non-controversial, so we would never put a controversial resolution on a consent agenda. Anything that we think the community will want us to discuss will not go on a consent agenda. We also changed the format, and I want to make sure I stick with my time, that residents will go first in terms of a resident forum. So for about 15 minutes, the first part of the agenda will be devoted to topics that residents want to talk about that we don't have on the agenda. So it's new items that you guys are bringing to us. When we have regular agenda items, we also switch to the community going first. So you'll hear a basic overview about the topic, and then we'll turn to the community to hear your input before we give our input. And you will have 3 minutes to speak, 2 minutes as a follow-up. The commissioners have the same rule. Once you all go, then we'll go. We'll have 3 minutes to speak, 2 minutes of a follow-up. Anything else major? Task force committee report should be limited to 2 minutes. Sometimes we can get into long discussions on those reports. If task force reports go beyond 2 minutes, we're asking them to turn in a written report so that the report is written, and to summarize that still within that 2 minutes. We're asking also for that written report 7 days in advance of the ANC meeting. and these changes are subject to Robert's Rules of Order. So that's the new meeting procedures. There's a copy of it at the door for folks in person if you want to grab it. And keeping on track with time, I want to ask commissioners, do you have any changes to the agenda?
I do.
Uh-huh.
It's a typo, but under the approval of the minutes,
Mhm.
March, it should read March 13th and 27th. And you should strike April 24th. I'm hard at work on them, but they're not ready,
Okay.
nor have they been circulated. That's just a typo, I think.
Yeah, it is. March 13th
And
and
27th.
got it. And striking April 24th.
Yeah.
And striking February.
While we're at it, you might want to change the date I saw.
Yeah, I changed it on my version. So also the date on the agenda should be May 8th. I changed it on my copy.
Yeah.
Peter, on ZDD,
The survey?
yes, are
Well,
we take that
I
off?
would take that.
Okay.
off and delay that until-
Okay. So we're going to strike on the 7:30 discussion and possible vote on the ANC survey, only the ZDD committee recommendation. The discussion will still occur, just not the ZDD committee recommendation. Any other changes to the agenda, commissioners? I move that we had,
I'm sorry, what's happening to the 7:30 items?
Two of the ZDD submitted two recommendations. In addition, the ZDD survey working group submitted a recommendation, but there's been a back and forth on that I've not been able to straighten out in time. So I'm suggesting we put off the survey portion of this until the next meeting, but the two other ones involving deed restriction and the process will stay, we will debate tonight.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
So you've moved.
I move that we
I
adopt the agenda.
A second. Adjourn.
All those in favor? Sure. Thank you, unanimous.
6-0.
Yes,
Michael is not dialed in.
no. That's it. It's online. If you go to ANC 34G,
Here,
look under meeting, you have a copy? No, I don't have a printed copy.
I can send you a link if you've got your phone.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what I'll do? Oh, no, you're in person. I live with Zoom. I was gonna put it in the chat, but of course that does me you no good, so.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. The items for approval are the March 13th and March 27th meetings. The approval of the MailChimp expense of $28.09 for the remainder of 2023, and approval of the new ANC meeting procedures to foster greater community agenda. All those, I move that approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor? Is there a second?
So second, and well,
Thank you, 6-0.
go back on that.
Okay, so the first part of the agenda, which is new, is the open community forum. So I would call on any community member that has items of interest, specific topics that are not on tonight's agenda, that the ANC should be aware of, that you want to discuss, that you want us to take action on. Please feel free to come to the mic and let's have an open discussion. Robert?
I thought we were gonna talk about the RASE.
We are, it's on the agenda.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other community topics? Hi, Lee, you want to go to the mic? Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm the chair. I just, all right, I would just get rid of it. If members, hearing and they do, use the telephone, you clean it, text with your commission.
do as much as you can to get rid of this community center. You need more time.
And can I just say that the practices when he preaches, I've talked to him 5 times today. So.
He does talk. And community members online, please raise your hand if you want to participate in this section of the agenda. And we can promote you. Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Sonnenberg, and I am Councilmember Fruman's Constituent Services Director. I just wanted to say a few things first. As many of you know, can you hear me?
Yes, actually, the agency, one of the things I should have clarified, this portion of the agenda is only for residents. So no agencies, no mopers, it's strictly for community members. At the bottom of the agenda, you'll see where we have moved the announcement section, and I should have announced. So my apologies for the agencies on the line. That portion of the agenda has now moved to the bottom.
Well, I will come back later.
Yeah, and you'll also have 1 minute of agenda time.
However, you can send a written version of your announcements for inclusion in the minutes. Send it to me, Jim Nash, Secretary.
You do that.
Any other community members with items of interest? Anything online? Anybody have raised hand? Bruce, you want to comment on this?
Well, I think it's fair to address what's been on the listserv. Many community members reached out to the commission over the weekend concerning the state of shoplifting, the gang shoplifting at CVS, both at 5013 Connecticut and 5550 Connecticut. There were lots of comments as to what our public officials are doing about this. This is an outrage, how do we put a stop to this and so forth. So I just wanted to let you know that we did reach out to the Second District Commander, John Branch, over the weekend. He was very responsive, indicated that they, of course, were fully aware of crimes, they were fully aware of the situation. They were working closely with CVS in terms of providing additional patrols, coordinating with CVS on theft prevention, doing detective work, investigatory work. So I want to convey that local police are very well aware of the problem and are addressing. They're very responsive over the weekend. If you were watching the listserv, I think it's fair to say there were lots of comments about.
And I'm looking to see if Mary has joined us.
And Chair Gore, I'll also just flag that next Monday, May 15th, we are going to have a special meeting on public safety with Commander Branch and other public officials to talk about the increase or the perception of increased crime in our neighborhood, what police are doing about it. And of course, there is an entirely new community policing initiative that the district has introduced. And so that might come up for discussion as well. But here we're being responsive to citizen concerns that go back to car break-ins, some autos and other things that have happened in the last 45 or 60 days, cumulatively, that we're now taking up and discussing with Commander. That's next Monday, 6 to 8 here in the community center.
Any other topics or interests? Okay, so I think we can move on. I don't see any hands raised online or in the audience, so we'll move on to the first substantive issue, discussion and possible vote on an ANC survey process. That's something else that has been really big in our community. We've had a lot of feedback from community members wanting the ANC to survey specifically when it comes to the civic core, but also in addition to the civic core, other issues that the survey that the ANC has been engaged in. Amongst ourselves, we've talked about definitely the civic core survey. We've talked about potentially a survey on the Connecticut Avenue bike lane project. We talked about some general surveys just to gauge sentiment in terms of ANC interaction. So I think it's appropriate for us to kind of, as a body, discuss how we want to engage in that. We initially started this conversation at an administrative meeting. We did not get through that conversation, so we were trying to arrange a second administrative meeting to discuss it, and we didn't get that kicked off. So I put it on the agenda because I think it should be a community conversation where we hear feedback from you all on how you would like to see this process going. This is just an initial discussion. My hope tonight is that the ANC can vote on starting the survey process, a survey team within the ANC to get going on some of these issues and have that team further flush out with community input what it looks like. So with that, and I do know we did get a recommendation from ZDD that they're still working on. I think we're all pretty much in agreement that we want a survey process with the ANC. That we want to have experts, whether they be experts within the community. Commissioner Sherman has introduced to us 3 community experts that we could potentially use. We are also working with Peter, myself, and some members of ZDD, working to try to get a broader community engagement process with someone that is an expert in that field. And to make sure that we work with community members on regardless of what the topic is when we're doing a survey, to include you all in that process as well. So members of the community as well as members of the commission. So my ask for the commission is that, and I do want to hear, we'll go to community first, you guys' thought on what that should look like for the commission. Do you favor the commission doing surveys? We received, in case you all don't know, we have a feedback form on our website that I post in our newsletter where people can comment on agenda items. So we did receive, I think, one or two, specifically relating to the survey process. And I did read that, and I'll dig that out while you guys are commenting. But I would definitely like to hear you all's feedback on where you think we should be, where you think we should start. What do you think would make a credible survey from this ANC? How would community be involved? Just your thoughts on that process. So if you would like to speak on that, again, community members have 3 minutes. Please feel free to go to the mic, and folks online, please feel free to raise your hand so you can comment on that. Any community comments? Mr. Gordon? Yes.
Well, I'm very pleased to learn that the ANC is moving forward with the survey. I have no expertise to offer, no advice to offer, except that I'm going to be left at the mercy of the DEMPED survey, which I know will be self-serving. I trust the ANC to come up with a survey instrument that will be honest and reflect the views of the community. So please do this with all haste, because things are moving very rapidly and the community does not have, I think, a sufficient amount of time to consider the issues and to let them be known.
Thank you.
I'm actually on the subcommittee of the CDP committee, and we talked about this, actually, although it's not included today, there was unanimity on that movement, we have a survey to have. So my only thing I would add to that is, it should be not, I think it's essential to have professionals do it. I'm not a professional, I think I would probably know how to make it to make this room this, and these are really hard things to do. It's also essential to look over what professionals produce before it goes out. But how you ask the question can easily determine the answer, and you don't want to just have it to you an answer that is invalid. With asking to change 2 words, we get a box. So I would just say that it's important to have both, that the people looking at it to make sure that actually this is asking the question in a way that's going to make the information that we want.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, you can just go straight to the mic. And make sure the mic is up and adjusted so that folks online can hear you and project as much as possible.
Be really close to it.
And could you spell your last name, please, for us?
Claudia Russell.
Russell.
RUSSELL. I am very curious what the timeline is. Been discussing it for a while and I know events are moving. So what timeline do you see? When does this need to be done? So that we can have adequate time to both do the survey, but also to review it. And I'd also like to see if you'd include an essay question so that people with ideas can present them. So it's not just so narrow, that it is questioning, it is also ideas. This is where we're generating our greatest sense of ideas in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll address like your timeline questions, so we don't take up time answering. We'll address that in our review section.
Hi, my name is Steve Connors, and I've been serving field my whole life. I think it's incredibly important that a survey be done correctly. I don't know what the budget is, what the timeline is. There are so many ways to ask questions, obviously, but obviously, in my field, been government related, so they're just basic survey questions with basic demographics. We do random sampling, we do census surveys. One of my big projects now is with the Department of Veterans Affairs, where we survey all people who have had burials in cemeteries, and all kinds of different surveys. But all I can say is that it'd be nice to have a budget, if there is a budget. It'd be nice to know what the survey sample is, what the frame is, right? And do we have good lists for all that stuff? We have everything that we need. Do we have adequate Gmail, email addresses? Do we have text messaging? Do we want to do, I mean, there's so many different options that we can do for a survey. But the planning and the question design takes time. And I don't know what everyone's time frame is. Happy to work on it. I know the government's going to do this first, and then we take a crack at it as a community to make this work. This is too important to rush through. You know, as someone who is in the field of survey design and qualitative research as well, it's just and yes, we can definitely add qualitative questions where we get the feedback. But there are so many different options that we can use. It's not just survey monthly or anything like that. I mean, if there's a budget, there's a will, we have a time frame, we can get the best survey you'd ever have. And you have demographics from the ANC that you would not believe. So just putting that out there, I'm happy to work on it. And I think it's a great project. I really appreciate people taking an interest in it. So.
Thank you.
Nancy Warren, DOISA.
What is it? Why is that?
Warren, DOISA. Just curious with respect to the survey. What is the plan? Well, we have a survey. What's the plan? What will become the results of the survey? Might come out to be something that this whole panel doesn't agree with.
Excuse me?
What are you going to do with the survey and the results?
We'll answer that in our 3-minute go round.
I think, pardon?
We'll answer that in addition to other questions that are posed in our 3-minute round, so we don't take up community time.
Thank you. President of Ivy Wood on 32nd Street, and I'm a member of the RASE committee. That was really helpful to hear from a person who knows science and surveys, because it's a very complicated endeavor. I want to make is that it is just one tool as we look at whatever it is. And it is not a vote. It's not going to, it is not a vote tonight. I get some of the impressions I hear on the serve is that people think it's a vote. And it's one tool, and I think it would be a very useful tool at the time when you afford it.
Related here. Relative to this week's comment, last year's comments, be very, very, very careful. Keep in mind that you were elected not only to review survey, you were elected to make decisions as a whole. That's what the ANC is for. Be very. And what's the name of the gentleman, piece of you and I discussed, did the survey for the community's time?
Former Commissioner Mallett?
Yeah, and he's not interested in doing it. I talked to him last night. He has absolutely no intention of doing it. He would probably be the best one to do it, but he won't do it. So I say be very careful, and it's the A and C to decide what's gonna go next. What's gonna go, thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Any community members online have comments they want to make on the survey? Any other community members in the audience? Okay, Commissioner. we'll start.
Well, thank you for all those. We have been talking for a very long time about this. This community is pretty polarized on a lot of the big issues. And because of that, we're particularly sensitive about how we do surveys on the really big issues. Right now, you can think of civic core, bike lanes, and so forth. And so we have been looking for professional help. We thought we were almost there in March, and then the city hired the firm that we were talking to, and has yet to give the firm a contract, but is tied them up so they're not talking with us. We think we are headed in the right direction, looking elsewhere, and we hope to have an announcement shortly. I think the point that Marilyn made about surveys not being votes is an important one, though. We do need to get guidance on, particularly on these big issues, but ultimately we have to make decisions. You can vote us out to make decisions you don't agree with, but we can't have referendums on everything. I think the other thing I would like to say about this is just that I do think there are narrow gauge issues that we can deal with ourselves. That is something more organized in our talking to people and less organized in hiring an outside firm. And so I hope we also develop that capacity to a greater extent than we have now. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Sherman?
Yes, thanks. Thanks for all of your comments. I appreciate all those. I have a very strong view in support of capturing the voice of our residents. I think that's why we're here. I think that's why the DC government created the advisory neighborhood commissions. Their neighborhood commissions to capture the voice of the residents and understand your views with respect to proposed city programs and policies and the delivery and quality of government services. I recognize surveys as one tool, certainly, but it's very important because consider this: we're in an ANC with about 14,000 residents. You're attending this meeting tonight, and typically on a given meeting night, there might be as many of you as are here now, another 20 or so. So maybe 50. If it's a particularly hot topic, then maybe 120. Outside of that, commissioners interact with the residents and hear from them in different ways on an ongoing basis. But there is a very large percentage of our population that you never hear from. And surveys are an effective way, an efficient way of tapping into what their thoughts and beliefs are. I'll give you just one little anecdote. I do a weekly newsletter to my 2,000 residents in single member district 2. And last week, and again, I repeat it this week, I asked a very simple question, which was, how close are you following the developments concerning the civic core? I just wanted to know if people were following. And I have received 60 to 70 responses to my question with lots of qualitative comments on it. You'll be happy to hear. And it's very helpful to hear from that broader swath of people. So I think we have a great opportunity to do these. Finally, I will say that Steve Connors is an expert in survey research. There are others whom I've had the pleasure of working with for many years. I have a very extensive background in international market and audience research. I managed a global program of $8 to $10 million a year for 2 decades. So I'm very familiar with the challenges in polarized environments. We think this is polarized with a survey again. So it's something that we have a handle on, that we can do, we have the expertise to do. I just think, to be honest with everyone here, we need to get on with it. And stop talking about it and put something together and get our feet wet and get going. Thanks.
Any other Commissioner Nash?
Yeah, I want to associate myself with what Ms. Jansen said, that this is a tool. And I think it's a useful tool. I do think we should do it. But I also am somewhat skeptical about how reliable it will be. Not only because of the difficulty of framing questions properly, you've also got to have answers or responses that are correctly done. And then finally, you may recall in 2016, almost all the surveys and polls predicted that someone would win the presidency, and when she didn't. And the reason is sampling error. Okay, sampling error systematically undercounted a huge number of voters, Republicans. And I put it to you that we are likely to undersample the indifferent or the unengaged. And although we are all for engagement and it's a good thing, I find a lot of my neighbors are not terribly engaged, and I think they should be respected and honored just as much as everybody else. They're happy in general, they're going about their lives. And this survey is, I think, is going to undercount and underrepresent them. And I want to make sure I stand up for the disengaged myself. And so that makes me a little bit of more of a distance from the survey than my colleague, Bruce Sherman. I like the idea.
We'll come back to community. There's community that wants to make a statement. Commissioner Zeldin on the phone.
So are you able to hear me okay, Lisa?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, so let me say, at the very outset, I apologize for not being there, but everyone knows on the commission that my mom, who's 96, fell and broke some ribs, and I had to go up to New York, and I'm just on my way back on the New Jersey Turnpike. Heaven on earth. Second, I wanted to say is that it's almost impossible, maybe it's because I'm in transit, but it's almost impossible to understand anyone from the community who's speaking. And besides you, Lisa, it's almost impossible to hear what the other commissioners are saying. So I've been listening now for 35 minutes and I've heard almost nothing that's intelligible other than out of your mouth, Lisa. So again, I don't know whether it's the New Jersey Turnpike or the technology, but if others on the line are having the same problem, we have to figure out this. In respect of the survey, all I want to say is I support the ANC owning this survey. I think we can do it ourselves in the same way we did the Military Road School survey and the earlier Jerry Mallett survey. And I would not like to turn this over to third-party experts. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners?
I'm sorry, you can mute me again, please.
Any other commissioners before we go back to community? Okay. Did you want to make a comment? And put that mic as close, almost kiss it.
Bend it up.
You can bend it up a little bit.
Sure.
I just to comment and misunderstood Mr. Madden's statement about surveys running to the pool and running out to on transcript. The New York Times has a lot of studies on this. It was a very complicated situation. It's not impossible. And a lot of it has to do with people voting for Trump, but not wanting to get into it.
Thank you. Okay, any other communities online? Comments from the community? Andrea?
It seems that the civic core is the most pressing issue because we don't have as yet people, private interest redeveloping Connecticut Avenue. And I would love to see a really focused on the civic core, professionally done survey. Surveys are about as close as we can get to finding out what residents believe. I agree that I acknowledge that they're not perfect, but to say that the unengaged will be unrepresented. I mean, I have to say that's true with voting, that's true with every mechanism in our republic. So if they choose to be unengaged, then they don't get to, their opinions don't get reflected. That's just the way it is for adults, for the most part. Do we have a budget for a professional survey? Yes or no? I'd like to ask the commission. But we definitely want. Thank you.
Any other community comments? Libby?
I am Martin, member of the Race Committee.
Libby, can you pull the mic up?
Martin, member of the Race Committee, and I just want to point out in regards to surveys, fact is that a survey is not going to address the history of development in the neighborhood. So we keep that in mind. But we're also thinking about as we look at that fundamental part of where we stand right now. And Chair Tate said we cannot pretend that history is not the issue here. We are our foundation. And it's true. And we are running from it. And it's also what we will be creating as we move forward in terms of the history for generations going forward, families. So I think it's really important that we consider that separate issue. Really talk about the survey.
Thank you. Okay. Any commissioner follow-up? Second round?
Someone online.
Oh, okay. We can let it go. Who is that? Yeah. Stuart, you can come off mute.
Yeah. Hi, I was just going to ask if because your mic, Commissioner Gore, seems to be working better than anybody else's. If you could just like really quickly summarize what people are saying, that would be very helpful because I'm not able to understand almost anything anybody else in the meeting is saying, which is very frustrating. But thank you. I know you guys it's a technology, working it out. Appreciate the efforts. So anyway, that's all.
Thank you. And I will say, the reason why you guys can hear me is I've done professional voiceover for years. So I know how to project my voice. And also work with a mic. But Commissioner Ferguson is summarizing in the chat. So if you open up your chat as speakers speak, he's putting in a summary. Okay. And just any other commissioners follow up before I go?
Well, just to reiterate the point that the questions raised about methodology are common. They're well understood in the field. Survey work, obviously, research work is done every single day in this country in a million different ways. We can do it here. It's the case that the commission in previous years with respect to the community center and the comp plan and other things has done surveys and has relied on those results. So I think that there is experience there. And then again, there is professional survey research expertise in this community that's willing to contribute pro bono to this commission, professionals. Thanks.
And just to follow up on that, I am definitely, so my vote will be in favor of the commission doing a survey. I know there is a lot of hesitancy out there with some people that have a fear about what the survey results will come back. I have faith in the commission, and Lee and who else said it? Someone else in the audience said it correctly in terms of we're elected, and also Commissioner Gosselin, that the survey will be a tool that we use to make this decision. we are bounded by our regulations to get your input, and we're really striving hard to do that in a different way. And taking a survey on a topic that's as controversial as this is a big leap for any commission, and it's a big leap for this commission. But I have faith, working with these folks up here, that they're going to take your comments seriously. They're going to take it into consideration. Some of them are going to weigh them extremely heavily. Someone is going to also, also weigh in, like Commissioner Nash talked about, some of those folks that might be disengaged. But your comments, I'm definitely committed to making that part of our product and our output to the city, to make sure that that voice is there. And that's going to be regardless of the results. We don't know what this survey is going to turn in. A lot of folks say, I want you guys to commit to doing what the folks in the survey say. Well, that works both ways. So regardless of what happens, these results are going to get to the city, and we're going to weigh them very heavily in our, recommendations, regardless of what that topic is. Connecticut Avenue bike lanes as well, civic core as well. So I would ask for folks not to be so fearful of this process. This is something that the ANC, I'm hoping, is going to be committed to. And with that, like Commissioner Gosselin said, nobody wants to get obviously voted off, but if you don't like our decisions, then that is the option. So with that, in terms of timeline and some of the process questions, we don't have that right now. I put this on the agenda because I believe it's critical that we get started. So I would like for the ANC, to come up with a small group of commissioners that are interested on working on this, and then come up with some of those timeline process. We definitely do not, I can tell you, like for the budget part, we don't have a budget for this. The commission has what, roughly $40-some thousand in its budget. We do not get a lot of money from the city. We could never pay for this process out of our ANC popper. So that's why we have been looking for professional survey folks out there in the community to partner with in doing this. We also have great people in the community that have ideas about this project that I would hope would sit on this particular survey with us. And that's both sides of the fences. You guys know I like to hear, and the commission does as well, both perspectives. So I'm hoping we'll have, folks on all sides of the table, as well as people that have really good background in terms of zoning and some of the other things that we might need to consider in this survey as we go forward. So with that, I move that the commission allow the ANC, the commission allow the ANC to move forward on a survey engagement team made up of commissioners, community members, members of zoning, design and development, and any other committee, as well as survey experts that we seek. Is that clear?
I second.
Discussion?
I'd be happy to volunteer.
All those in favor? Commissioner Zeldin, if you're on the line, do you want to vote?
He wrote to me in favor.
Okay, 7-0. Okay, so this is just the start of this conversation. We will amongst ourselves will put together initial commissioner team. Then you'll see something come out. So please watch newsletters, emails. It's going to come quick. I would like to get this out this week and get solicitations from community members next week and get the survey team up and running. And then in addition to that, we will integrate, if we get a survey expert, we'll integrate them obviously into our team. So thank you, Commissioner.
And the ZDD.
Absolutely, ZDD as well. Anything else on that?
Sorry.
All right, thank you, guys. So I know 2 commissioners that are going to volunteer. Okay, Commissioner Gosselin, next topic is yours.
So in addition to talking about a survey, but not quite coming to closure on it, the ZDD, what's that?
Put that close and speak louder.
In addition to discussing a survey recommendation, the working group discussing a survey recommendation, the full zoning design and development committee at its April 27th meeting voted to move forward to the full ANC 2 recommendations. And the first involves the deed restriction that has been discovered to be on half of this property, the community center library property. And the second has to do with the process thus far followed by Jeffrey and the views of the majority of those. So Jim Feldman, who co-authored a long legal analysis of not only the deed restriction on this property, but on many, perhaps the majority of properties along the upper Connecticut Avenue corridor, will present a short explanation of why the committee voted to. We're not doing it.
We're on the civic court engagement recommendation.
Okay, so Jim, I'm sorry. I apparently have done this backwards. Lisa said that the first thing on is the civic court engagement process. So if you just hold off, and I guess let's see. We don't have a ZDD member who was co-authored that recommendation. Let me just read. It's on, yeah, it's online.
No, I mean your members. Is one of the members online?
Was it Jordan, for example, on that? Jordan Benderly?
If any ZDD member is online that also wants to discuss this, please raise your hand. Okay, you know.
All right. So the recommendation is online. You can send out a link to it if you want. Let me just briefly read the high points. The ZDD committee recommends that the ANC notify the mayor and all members of the district council that the district needs to slow the process of planning changes to the civic core in Chevy Chase and to substantially improve the way the district engages with the ANC and the Chevy Chase community. The committee recommends the ANC make the following points to the district officials. One, that the community and the district are at crossroads and planning for the civic core in the upper Connecticut Avenue commercial corridor. Past experiences with the district office of planning and the office of deputy mayor for planning and economic development have been unsatisfactory and should not be repeated in the coming period. Two, community involvement in amending the comprehensive plan and development of the small Chevy Chase small area plan was inadequate and residents' concerns were substantially ignored. Three, going forward, the community and the ANC must be full partners with the district in development of a request for proposal for the civic core and changing the zoning of the upper Connecticut Avenue corridor. Five, as part of the full partnership, the district must advance and improve communication with the ANC and residents, keeping both informed about projected timelines for proceeding with various elements of the civic core project and zoning. Pull it down.
I can't hear.
Civic core and zoning, responding in a timely manner to requests for information and coming before the community to fully explain key elements of the process. 5 or 6, a truncated public engagement process that is designed and managed solely by the district is unacceptable to the ANC and the community. 7, as part of the full partnership, the district and the community must jointly manage public engagement process that runs for a substantial period of time and includes multiple in-person, face-to-face meetings at which residents can question district officials and talk with each other in search of common ground to guide future changes in the community's built environment. And finally, any planning for the future must be predicated on a comprehensive community survey conducted by the ANC, jointly by the ANC and district agencies that address a series of issues. And let me just refer you to online or what the let me just make 2 comments about this. As with all recommendations from standing committees, it's up to the ANC to take what it wants and leave behind what it doesn't want. I personally am happy. I know that some people on the ZDD and perhaps some commissioners find this the tone here too negative, and I would be happy to take friendly amendments that tone it down. But I want you to understand the recent travel on this issue. 6 weeks ago, after spotty conversations, Demp had recognized that there was a deed restriction on this property. And we have repeatedly said to them that they need to come to this, before this community and tell us what they think it means, what they want to do, what the effect on the city's ideas for how to change this property would be. And finally, on Wednesday, we're going to have a meeting. Actually, though, Dented is going to come, but on another subject, a related subject, zoning, but they have yet to come to us. And yet we know the city is moving quickly. Dented is moving quickly to take steps towards what I view as a foreshortened community engagement process, and then away they go and write the RFP. Now, I just say that there are a variety of opinions here, but I do think all of us are frustrated that we have had such a hard time. And I know you are frustrated that we've had such a hard time talking about something as simple as a timeline. Commissioner Lynn repeatedly asked for this, and it's frustrating to say to a fellow commissioner, beats me. I mean, I don't know. But with that said, I put this on the table for as a motion. Again, I'm happy to take friendly amendments to tone it to what you want.
So I said.
So I guess we start with community discussion.
Yeah, I'm here, I toned it down. I would tone it down. It is called the park. And Dempat is coming up. Dempat is coming up here in 2 days.
Yeah, but they're talking about zone.
They're talking about what?
Zoning. Zoning, strictly the text amendment.
Something quite specific.
Oh, okay. Is the Office of Planning coming also? Okay, my guess is the Office of Planning will. Right? My guess is here in Commission, I bet the Office of Planning is South zoning thing with their bed over. I will get off the show. Hey, I would engage both when they're talking about zoning. I would engage the same subject you just talked about, but point down. But I was very, very at the session that Mr. Zucker, what's his name? Zucker, January 12th. The first person. I think he can be worth it. My guess is that gentleman, I got it. The gentleman who will after our survey, he's pretty harsh. He doesn't waste. He did a fantastic job for the community survey, but what he didn't do, very harsh. That's what they say, being harsh. Talk too much. So I would tone it down a little bit, and I'm trying very hard to bring them together. I think we got them to come. We got to have some planning. Try to marry the two subjects.
Any other members from the community here present? Okay, we can go online. I don't want to mispronounce your.
That's what I
name.
thought. I'll pronounce it for you. It's
Thank you.
phonetic. Snigdha Prakash.
Thank you.
I could not understand what was just said, but I do want to voice what I think is an opposing opinion, which is I don't understand why you would tone it down. It's very, very clear. And it is one of the first things I've heard that expresses, I think, a commonly held view that we are hurtling towards a destination that we don't really know what it's going to look like. I don't understand why we're basically getting rid of our library or not developing it in the way that it needs to be developed. I mean, why would you get rid of books? And how are we going to have a library that looks anything like what we have now? So I don't think you should tone it down. I think it's right on the mark. We need we need more time, and we need a better process to understand where we're going. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other community comments from community members online? If so, raise your hand. Any audience members? Okay. Commissioners. Commissioner comments? Commissioner Lynch?
I would like to offer an amendment to strike the line that says that heretofore they've been unsatisfactory in dealing with us, to the point that it does offer a fairly harsh term.
Might as well do that.
Oh my goodness, I love this. I love the color and the color.
So Commissioner Lynch, do you have any addition?
I have one more friendly amendment.
Okay, go on, do all your friendly.
Okay. I would like to offer another friendly amendment that we make mention of the RFP process. As we discussed with the ZDD meeting, the RFP process is not going to be as substantive as we would hope. So I think we should mention that that is going to be insufficient and that we would like more engagement. We're basically there, but I don't know if there's mention of the RFP process, which was stated.
Can I make a comment on piece of it? Let me first offer a place to put the RRP. There's, I can't remember my numbering of the bullets here, but the bullet says a truncated public engagement process that is designed and managed solely by the district is unacceptable for the ANC community. Would you accept a truncated public engagement process such as we are concerned our RFP is? Leave it open, whether we're, so we could put it there. I'm not sure how to handle the first one. I mean, it might, perhaps we could word it, we're at a crossroads, and we are concerned with experience that past experience suggests that we'll not have an adequate process to make that. I mean, I do think it's been unsatisfactory. I mean, I think convincing words here, I don't think that's it very well.
Other commissioners?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I commend the recommendation. I think it speaks the voice of the community, the concerns the community has. I wouldn't pull any punches, I wouldn't hedge it, I tell them like this, and say we want full partnership, we want a full voice in the process, period. And keep in mind, that's what all of our citizens want of the ANC, a voice in the process. So this is about expressing our voice. I think it's perfectly fine. I commend it.
Commissioner Nash?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Sherman for once. I think it's fine the way it is. It has been unsatisfactory. I would not want to take that out either.
Commissioner Ferguson? Commissioner Zeldin, if you have comments you'd like to make, raise your hand. In the meantime, I'll make my comments. Let me just say this. I agree with Commissioner Sherman. I looked at this recommendation, and thank you, ZDD members. You have given us some really excellent work product to help the commissioner in making these decisions. If you guys don't know members of that committee. They're very diverse. They come from all throughout the ANC, all professional backgrounds, a really good, I think, representation of our community. So I really appreciate this recommendation. I personally also think this recommendation is spot on. I disagree that it's too harsh. It is not too harsh. I think one thing maybe the community does not know is the extent that we have tried to work with DMPED and OP to come to this community, to explain some of the things that they've done, including a recent text amendment. I have personally talked with Jill Stucker almost every week, and I know sometimes people have said secret meetings. Those are not secret meetings. Those are Lisa Gore saying that you need to work with us in this process and you need to do better. I cannot convince them to do that, so we have to move on the best we can to make sure that we bring them to you. I am disappointed, and most of you guys know I'm a big affordable housing advocate, but this process has been horrible for the community. It's been divisive for the community, and we have to keep making sure that we keep the heat on the government to do better by us in terms of this process. So we've done a great job, even going back, and I don't know if folks remember former Commissioner Connie Chang, I believe, wrote a resolution, and if you guys know former Commissioner Chang, you know how thoroughly she writes. She wrote an excellent recommendation or resolution that we submitted, I believe, for testimony. Was it testimony I believe it was council testimony that we submitted about the failures in this process and the things that we wanted to do better or wanted OP to do better in the small area plan. And it was an extensive resolution. So we have worked with them, we put the council on notice, but we continue to get short-shifted. So in terms of the friendly amendment, the first one, Commissioner Lynch, I would ask that Commissioner Gosselin not to amend that language, because really unsatisfactory is probably about as nice as we can say it. I really believe that, and I don't think that this commission, and I think we do need to work with government, and we have been working professionally with them. But at the same time, we need to let them know where we stand.
Thank you, Chair Goldberg. So should we just move this to a vote?
Yes.
All in favor of,
Make a motion.
I thought I made a motion. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
all in favor of taking the
Who
Z.
seconded?
You seconded it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make that up. So all in favor of taking the ZDD recommendation and notifying the mayor and all members of the council about our concerns about this process, raise your hand.
Anything from
Michael?
Commissioners over? Six zero.
Six,
Passes.
did you say 6-0?
Yeah.
Okay, Jim. So we move on to the other recommendation by the ZDD, which has to do with the deed restriction on the civic core and what should be done about it.
And in conjunction with race. So.
Yes,
these are
I'm sorry,
combined.
that's right. Jim will talk about the recommendation of the ZDD, and then Libby, will you speak on, race has made a similar recommendation with different logic or complementary logic, so you'll speak on that.
Got it.
You-
Corinthia.
Oh, Corinthia, okay.
Thank you very much.
Turn on the mic. And stand really close.
Yeah, all of this.
And talk up. You got really talk.
Okay. You should actually in the ground courtroom, and you gotta make sure that you're here.
So work on that.
Then you worry about it. Okay, so I really, guess. I'm Jim Feldman, actually Jim Feldman. I'm with the native Washingtonian. I'm familiar with this, and quite live in this area. I'm familiar with this area, Washington. I've been living on Oliver Street here for 2 years. Okay, so, I won't go into a lot of background, to take up a lot of time. I'm probably going to talk about 3 things. One is, what is the deed restriction that we're talking about? It's a restriction that on this property, civic or lot, the back half of the lot, nothing to do, and it imposes no restriction on what happens in the front half of the lot towards Connecticut Avenue. But the back half of the lot, it simply says, no apartment house may be built. Okay, it's important to realize what that does and doesn't do. It does not preserve open space. It would be 100% consistent with this restriction. It is, the city is free to cover, pave over, and put a building, community center, a library, or some other building on the back half. Nothing, this would have no problem with that. Just no apartment. It doesn't keep it as it wasn't intended to, I don't think. And it doesn't keep it as a school. I mean, it's not, it was a school on the property, which we needed to see it as a school on the front part of the lot. It was possible at that time for Chesapeake Land Company to have, there are all kinds of restrictions you can put in deeds, so long as the property remains a school, so long as it remains open space, so long as it is used for a governmental purpose. It would be a million different things they could have done. They didn't do any of that. All he said is no apartment. It doesn't keep building heights low. The city could build as high as the building on the back, in front half of the property, as zoning or whatever else permits, because it has nothing to do with the front half. Even the back, they could build as as they want. Has nothing to do with that. It just can't be school. Okay. So that's what it just gives you mentioned. Can't be a part of it. Now, what it does do is it kept apartment. I was trying to keep apartment houses out of the area, of this area, which otherwise is composed of houses with a relatively well to do. And the main reason I can think of for trying to do that, since it wasn't preserving open space, it wasn't preserving the school, was it was trying to keep people who couldn't afford these houses at a minimum price out of the neighborhood. And I think it's pretty good evidence that that is what it accomplished. That's what it's trying to do. So that's what the deed restriction is. Now, it's important for 2 reasons. It's important because of what's going to happen to this lot in the city of Florida. If the city has to accommodate whatever development is going to happen, so that they, whatever housing is going to work for the lot, can't be on the back half of the lot. It makes it extremely hard. It makes it much harder to manage the lot as full and try to figure out, how can we place all the different uses? How can we preserve open space? How can we make building heights not absurdly high? It's a restriction that makes it much harder to accomplish those goals. Okay, and so for that reason, it's important that you should try to take steps to challenge it, not acquiescing it. If there's another important point, the other lots I've looked into. There was 2 other attorneys, Greg Schmidt and Eric Rowan, who wrote the memos. You guys have all seen. The other lots on Connecticut Avenue going from they actually into the Exxon station up to Oliver Street. I haven't looked at every one, but for example, every one on my block, which is the Wells Fargo block, every lot on that block had the restriction or it was having 7 lots. And I spot-checked the others, it's a little hard to search all of them, but I'm quite confident that every other lot on the east side of Connecticut had that same down to about halfway to the Exxon station. The other half of the Exxon station and the west side was developed by somebody else who didn't have that deed restriction, the different deed restriction that may well serve the same. So this is the time to challenge that. The city is in a housing crisis. And I think that our civic work would benefit from having people living here. It's a strange idea that in a commercial area, of all places, you don't want apartment houses. I can understand there are residential here. A commercial strip like this along and gathering businesses, it would make the community more open, it would offer possibilities for affordable. We have a lot of, I think, good results. And the best way to accomplish that, for that whole strip, is for the city to challenge it. And the memo outlines ways to do it on this lot, because if the city actually has it, it's going to be that much harder for private developers to do that money. At some point in the future, on the Wells Fargo lot, or Stateway wanted to build modern supermarket, but say a nice size supermarket, $20,000 above or below, which is what they've done elsewhere. They just had to do that, and it could just discourage them in much harder like that. And I think. So anyhow, for those reasons, I think this is the time for the city to for the city to address it and to see the next step of the challenge to the development.
Thank you, Jim. Libby, you want to? Corinthia, I'm sorry.
Questions?
Yeah, we're gonna have both committee presentations and then we'll go to questions in the community. Corinthia, can you give the presentation for race on the same subject?
Yes, Lisa, is this for our committee report or just on our recommendation for
Just the recommendation.
just the recommendation? Okay, so basically our recommendation was titled the 1909 deed restriction that prohibits multifamily housing on the rear 125 feet of the property. On May 1st, the RASE provided the ANC commissioner with our recommendation on the deed restriction. So basically we asked the commission to advise the district to build significant dedicated affordable housing and workforce housing with a focus on households earning 50% or less of the median family income above the Chevy Chase Community Center and the Chevy Chase Library. As a community organization in the 3G, 4G ANC for racial and social equity in Chevy Chase, DC, we believe that Chevy Chase has a rare opportunity to become a more inclusive community on the racial and social equity aspects of that. We hope that the commissioners will recognize that the deed restriction is an unfortunate artifact of our history of exclusion and explore all options to remove this restriction and to allow affordable housing without limiting the building to the front of portion of the Civic Center.
So
That's
just to
all.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the recommendation of race has two bullets. So it's join race in recognizing that this deed restriction is an unfortunate artifact of our history of exclusion. And then explore all options that could remove the restriction to allow affordable housing without limiting building to the front portion of the Civic Forum. Those are the two main points, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I suggest that number two and ZDD language is completely consonant. So I suggest adding just number one, and making a combined resolution. Does that make sense?
If race accepts that, and ZDD.
Can I comment on that? Yeah, isn't there a little bit of a difference between what Mr. Feldman recommended, which was that the city take the lead in getting rid of that deed restriction, and this one, which is all options should be pursued?
Well, Jim, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Feldman et al. Memo suggested taking any most efficacious route to removing the restriction. I mean, I offered 5 options. Now, you could say that what Ray says is even wider, which is any option. But I mean, I think they're basically what's being proposed to do vis-a-vis the city is the same. The difference with the RACE committee is it asks us to reaffirm a position the commission has already taken on the issue of affordable housing and deeply affordable housing. Is that a reasonable?
Just one, the city owns the land, so the city has to be the city, there's nobody else to do it here. It has to be the city. We can try to purchase. They own this.
Yeah, so the way I see it, that on the issue of the deed restriction, the city should take the lead in getting rid of that. And if we're gonna pass a resolution, that's what I would want us to pass on the deed restriction. When it comes to affordable housing, that's right? Am I missing something?
I mean, maybe what we ought to do is put this on the table so there's a language we can figure about. The reading of this is that the nub of it says specifically, it's outlined in a memorandum written by Jim Feldman and Ray Schmidt and Eric Rohn dated April 21st, 2023. The ZDD recommends that the ANC ask the city to either A, attempt to agree with the other party on the issue, Chevy Chase Land Company, on a release of any obligations under the no apartment covenant and appropriately file and defend that release. Or B, enact appropriate legislation that would, in light of the district's current housing crisis, declare no apartment covenants either in a specific areas or more widely to be against public policy and therefore invalid. If there are other equally and more effective or efficient ways to challenge the no apartment covenant, the city should take those actions. So in all 3 points, as the city would be better, not the ANC. That will be done. So look, I suggest that I move that we put this resolution with
Recommendation.
This recommendation. I put this forward as a motion before the ANC with point 1 of the RASE committee recommendation added to it. That so together, these would reaffirm our position on affordable housing, deeply affordable housing at the site, and 2 would ask the city to seek removal of it by what it means necessary. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. Now,
Why are we doing this now? Or
We're gonna have community comments. Just hang on 1 minute. We're gonna allow the community to talk.
I'm in fact now, right?
Yeah. So if you want to talk, please go to the mic.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're just we're trying to learn the new process. So that's all. Bend it down.
Mr. Bill, am I correct that Councilman, I'm thinking of it. Councilman Coleman, yeah, and I'm why Councilman Roman move forward himself. I guess.
Yeah.
Or my age. I guess I'm asking you, are you the work that you did? I thought it was. It wasn't practical. Okay. And that would seem to me that he wants us to have. He wants his deed restrictions eliminated.
you have to, I can't speak for it.
Okay, all right. I was certainly suggesting to the commission that Councilman Roman take the lead on this. In fact, he wants to, I bet he does.
No,
He doesn't.
no, he does not.
That's not.
No.
Then what?
We've had conversations with Councilman Furman and, he's not taking the lead on it.
We can't really, we can't answer the question for Councilman. I mean, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
from my point of view, it's a disappointment, but so it goes. So.
I'm gonna say that I totally agree that the First Amendment makes sense. I'm very disappointed with.
Please speak into the mic, sir.
Yeah.
Very disappointed with the way it's responded to. First, and I agree with that first, was the resolution. Second one, I don't understand why this is being like railroaded through that. I just don't get it. Yeah, what am I missing? Who decided that?
Yeah, well, railroad, we're talking about removing the deed restriction.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the part before we decide what You know, like survey results and all that.
Well, I think Railroad Street, here's the problem, that, the RFP would be very different if it asked for proposals to build, if, as is likely, whatever the community asks for a building that includes housing, but only gets to build on half the lot. And the city is moving quickly towards a short, public comment process and an RFP. So the issue of what we do with the heat restriction is pretty immediate. I mean, it's not, I mean, the timing is not ours to decide.
So we can't wait on any further in terms of like a survey plan.
Well, this is one of the problems that these kinds of decisions, we during the small area planning process, my view was we were always behind. We were always outlined by it. If we wait and, you know, if we were philosopher kings and could just, you know, think about the whole issue for a while, it would be wise to wait, but we're under a lot of pressure from the city, and most importantly, an RFP written to build housing, but only on half the lot. It's going to be a very different RFP than an RFP written to build, to have the whole lot, to have the lot less income.
Have they been responsive to any kind of meetings?
Well, as we said, the reason I think you saw a 6-0 vote on the yeah, I see it. A 6-0 vote on the previous one is no, they have not. So it's not a happy situation.
All right.
I have a statement, but I'd like to distribute these.
Thank you.
Name is Robert Gordon. I was a 3-term ANC commissioner. And currently the president of the Chevy Chase Community Association. And I'm speaking tonight on behalf of a new organization called Chevy Chase Voice. And I'd like to read my statement. Commissioners and neighbors. Do you hear me?
Loud.
I have many objections to the DC government's plan to redevelop civic commons. I don't like to be steamrolled by DemHed, which is moving forward with the RFP and surplus process against its own rules and the community's clear intentions. I don't like the huge building planned by OP for the site, clear overreach. That will provide for many luxury apartments, very few affordable units, and little outdoor space. I object to the land giveaway and the massive government subsidies that will be needed to complete the project. I object to moving forward without a DC government appropriation that is sufficient to modernize the center library. What I am for is a world-class community center and state-of-the-art library on the site. I'm also for more affordable housing in Chevy Chase. A month ago, I asked the ANC to survey existing available units, affordable units in the neighborhood so that they can be made available to the wider DC community. A quick review on my part has shown that there are many available units. I hope that the ANC goes ahead and does this. But this evening, we are talking about the RASE and ZDD reports. My understanding is that both subcommittees were tasked with reviewing and evaluating the controversial heat restrictions on the Chevy Chase Library and Center property through their own lenses, racial and policy leading. The heat restriction placed on the site of the Chevy Chase land property when it was deeded to the DC government in 1909 for a school says that no apartment buildings can be built on the property. This restriction applies to the back 40% of the current property. I asked the ANC to postpone the vote on these committee reports until the community has had a chance to fully absorb them, informed by a community survey. So here's some background.
Mr. Gordon, you have about 40 seconds.
Can I take my 2 minutes in addition?
Yes.
Thank you. The founder of Chevy Chase, Francis Mullins, was an avowed segregationist and racist. But the issue this evening is not about Mullins' prejudices. It's not about other covenants that CTL stated, Chevy Chase Land Company, or other land developments placed on other properties. It's about whether the no apartments covenant on the civic commons property was intended to be racially exclusionary, and if it should be abolished. RASE claims one thing, but history says another. The RASE position paper claims that Chevy Chase Land Company founded Chevy Chase as an exclusive community for middle and upper income residents. What RASE is saying is that the no apartment building restriction is meant to prevent low income tenants and people of color from living in Chevy Chase. They claim that the deed restriction is exclusionary, racially discriminatory, and therefore void. They have no proof of that. It's a conclusion based on conjecture rather than fact. In lieu of zoning restrictions at the turn of the century, CTLC did what zoning accomplishes today. It purposely applied restrictions to what could be built according to its grand plans that included broad streets, large lots, and parkland. Strict building regulations and covenants govern what future residents could build. CTLC ensured that the homes met superior quality standards by requiring minimal construction costs. It also provided for specific setbacks, placement of stables, and so on. The covenants restricted commercial establishments and apartments in most of its deeds. And that's up and down Connecticut Avenue. They did that for a purpose. They wanted a suburban community that was devoid of apartments and commercial. That was not the case on the west side of the street, which was owned by another developer, Colby Gordon, no relation. The RASE report should be rejected because there is no proof that the no apartment covenant on the former school properties was meant to be racially exclusive. It was part of a plan to build a pleasant suburban community that we enjoy today. Unlike the RASE community, ZDD does not argue that restrictions are a result of racist intentions. By the way, this was a very well written report. Rather, it argues that the restrictions is poor public policy today that should be canceled. Its favorite solution is to ask the Chevy Chase Land Company to revoke the no apartment deed restriction. I don't know what the outcome of that would be. Nobody does. Since the ZDD is dealing with public policy, I asked that the community survey be completed to understand where the community stands on the public policy issue. I urge the ANC to postpone the vote until after its survey is conducted and the results are analyzed. Once again, this is a public policy issue, and it should be done after the public policy survey. So I have one question for Mr. Feldman. Has the ZDD reviewed the property deed between the DC government and CLC from the 1987 deed? It provides interesting insight into the later deed in 1909 and it claims about deed restrictions. I hope you have looked at it. I hope that the has provided that to you because it is germane to the entire issue of your report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's 8:31, so please go on with your next comment so we can wrap up on time.
I'm going to make it very short. My name is Carol Grunwald. The Chevy Chase community has waited all through the COVID emergency to be able to properly weigh in on plans for the site and the rest of Upper Connecticut Avenue. For many, many months, survey residents on how they would like development to occur or not occur along Main Street. It would be wrong to tip the scales for this project by looking to remove the covenant, and it would be an egregious breach of public trust to vote on this for our community.
Thank you.
My name is Michelle Coleman, and I live in Military Road, DC, Washington, native Washington. And I don't have anything prepared, but I just want to mention that I did speak last week to the chairman of the Chevy Chase Land Company, and he has no problem at all saving the city from this if he's asked. And he said no one has reached out to him.
That's not true.
But he said that he'll be happy to release DC from that restrictive covenant requirements.
Okay. What's your last name? Thank you. And you're actually probably right. It probably hasn't been an official ask. I know there's been some conversations, but I don't think it's been official. Right. Right. Okay. Thank you. Libby?
Yeah, this community in 2023 decided to continue practices already described. That would be very concerning. Again, in Chevy Chase, we cannot pretend that history is not the fundamental issue here. RACE recommends getting rid of these restrictions so that other options can be explored. And I do think we need to react to the idea that there is no proof that the covenant barring apartments was meant to be racially exclusive. This is disingenuous at best. And Chevy Chase is, I think, smart enough to speak through it. Newlands, as you know, was an avowed racist, and as a white supremacist, he was also the developer of Chevy Chase. He mandated that homes be priced high as part of building regulations. This meant that by design, only people with wealth could afford a home in Chevy Chase. And due to our country's history of slavery and other racial injustices, wealth was strictly tied to race, and unsurprisingly, it still is. African Americans were not able to buy here. Renting an apartment was therefore the only option. So what did the Chevy Chase Land Company do? They banned apartments. And concerns about aesthetics and building size were clearly not the reason apartments were banned, because the deed makes no mention whatsoever of building size. Today's representative of the Chevy Chase Citizens Association has referenced the document entitled Chevy Chase, a bold idea, plan by Judith Helm Robinson. Unfortunately, this document does nothing to dispel the notion of discrimination. On the contrary, it states in perhaps unfortunate language, Chevy Chase was planned to meet the requirements of discriminating people. That's unfortunate and insensitive word, but that does not necessarily mean, in our opinion, people of great wealth. She goes on to say scores of those moderate means make their homes here. The sad fact is that despite the hard work and contributions by African Americans in Chevy Chase, they were still excluded from the scores of moderate means who were allowed to reside here. So doubly ironic is that the list of professions that she alludes to includes teachers. And it would certainly be nice today if our teachers and firefighters and grocery store workers had the option of affordable or housing so they could live there. But in fact, that history has contributed to the reality we have now of almost no dedicated affordable workforce housing in our board. The impact is today excluding the less well-to-do, disproportionately follows the district due to income disparities. And also the document by Robinson Today, the basic character of Chevy Chase, as planned by the Chevy Chase Land Company in the 1890s, has not changed. Powerful indication of the uniqueness of Newland's enterprise. It's also a powerful indication of a community focused on the status quo and keeping out the other. And 114 years later, we must be better than this. The racial geography of DC speaks for itself. DC as a whole is about 50% African American, and the citywide area median income is around $100,000. While Chevy Chase is 6% African American and with an approximate AMI of 208,000. So in order for us to be a welcoming community, we need to be responsive to these numbers. And it's about doing our best to offer an opportunity for those who would like to live here and share in our resources. We can be a model instead of a laggard. And I believe also that this community has the ANC, the community, the ANC, and the district government all expressed a deep commitment to social and racial equity and support for affordable housing. So we have an obligation to all citizens of the city. And we must not preserve exclusionary and racist covenants. Again, we can be a model that will last.
Thank you.
Maybe I live in a military room 41st. I wanted to thank the zoning, design and development and the RACE committee for the work that we've done on this and for tackling this very important issue around. I'm less concerned honestly about looking back than about looking forward to what we want to be as a community. And the reality is that the covenant as it stood and as it continues to affect our community has created a kind of segregated neighborhood that we live in now. And my key goal would be that we be able to open up that I believe that this community has the heart and the welcome and the openness to be able to bring more people into this neighborhood and to share the things that we've got here. So I would really encourage you to go forward with these suggestions.
Thank you.
Bend it up.
So I'm Councilman Nelson, I'm at Live on Prada Avenue where I.
Cal, you have to talk into them.
Okay, I'm just telling you what's it.
And you spelled your last name.
So I've lived on the Prada Avenue since I was 10. And I'm a member of the RACE committee, but I'm here to talk about, just to mention quickly about the surveys. I've read and heard a lot about surveys in the last several weeks, and I've heard it being elevated to the level of a mandate. A survey is not a mandate. A survey is taking the temperature of the neighborhood. I hope to serve on the survey creation committee because that surveys have to be done well. They're on my guard for that. But make no mistake, that is not the same thing as a vote, and it is definitely not the same thing as true community engagement. People who are opposing views sit down, speak with each other, which is what we need. We don't have time for that right now. These restrictions, that we move forward with our key process. Do I'm looking forward to doing real engagement. The survey basically just. The survey can also be manipulated by advocacy groups.
Cal, I have to restrict you to the topic. We've passed that and we are at 8:40.
Technically, you're 5 minutes.
Thank you. Okay. We also have a few folks online I want to get to. Corinthia, then Mrs. Prakash, I don't want to butcher your name. Corinthia Simmons.
Oh, hi. So I just want to remind the ANC that even though we are in Chevy Chase, our civic core is for all DC residents. And I just want to remind people of that. So we have to think about all of residents in the DC area. And then the other comment that I just want to add is that the implied perception of the deed restriction. I think that, based upon what this area was founded upon, we need to think about the implied perception of, continuing on with this deed and from 1909, and we're in 2023.
Thank you. Ms. Prakash?
Yes, hello, thank you. You know, I want to associate myself with the comments of the chairman of the Chevy Chase community. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact name, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And I honestly do not understand, I believe someone else raised this question, why we're rushing to remove the deed restriction. And I also take serious exception to the implication that if you have questions about raising the deed restriction, or indeed questions about the so-called affordable housing that's going to be built there, that you are somehow aligning yourself with the exclusionary past. That is far too simple and simplistic an interpretation of history. I would be willing to bet really good money that we are going to get a sliver of affordable housing if we get any, and that this is more than anything else a giveaway to developers. If the city of Washington is so keen to build affordable housing, let them put some money in it without giving away the core of the Chevy Chase community. I don't understand why we cannot have a state-of-the-art library like they have in Cleveland Park and at Tenleytown. I don't understand why we are, at the same moment as we are saying we want to do a survey, why we are rushing to raise a deed restriction and to rewrite what we have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to commissioners. Any other? Commissioner Lynch?
Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Peter Lynch. I SMD 05. I am a teacher and I live in the Lorraine apartments, which are naturally affordable. I don't speak in opposition to both of the recommendations. In fact, I'm very grateful for the work that has been done. But I move that we suspend the vote until we have a clear understanding of what is intended for the site. Right now, we don't know what that is, nor do we have a sense of the affordability levels or amount of units that may come. There is also no definitive answer as to how the deed restrictions will be adhered to by the city at this unique site. The community, through the small area plan.
So Commissioner Lynch, you have a motion on the floor. We need to first put a second and then discussion.
Sure. I move that we suspend the vote until we have a definitive understanding of the deed restrictions and a plan for the civic site. I don't oppose the recommendations.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. And due for the sake of time, I think we can dispense with the vote, so I'll call for the vote.
Which vote? Chair.
On the suspend,
Okay. Chair Gordon.
not debatable. Yeah, but go
May I
ahead.
just finish what I prepared to take? Not
Sure,
very
go
long.
on.
The community center and library outdoor spaces should remain useful at the future site as they do at the current. It's hard to imagine a 100 unit apartment building and the civic core buildings allowing for all the amenities that the current site provides. The Northampton Street residents, which are also my constituents, are worried about high-rise buildings at the back of the lot. Just as in other parts of the ANC, people are becoming concerned about the height of new houses. The apartment covenant slows this process down and will likely be overrun anyway. We are asking for the city to slow down and include us. But these recommendations, if adhered to, will quickly push the process further along. I respect both committee opinions and recommendations, but why the rush? Let's suspend this vote until the definitive understanding of the deed restrictions and the civic site is known. Thank you.
I want to repeat what I said in response to Steve Connor's question. And that is that the timeline here was not of our making. The timeline here is being made by the city, by Denfed. And there will be very different if there is a restriction versus if there isn't a restriction. So I think it behooves us to speak now on the issue of restriction. Let me just point out one other thing about the opposition to challenging the restriction. Roughly speaking, half the people who are opposed to challenging the restriction are opposed because they think it will give the city a shift, some protection, and slow the process down. And about half the people who are opposed to attacking the restriction believe that it will cause lawsuits which get in the way of it, which would speed the process up. So about half the people believe that somehow if we do challenge the restriction, that would cause lawsuits which will slow the process down. So by not challenging, we speed it up. So basically, you have the two basic arguments run in opposite directions. And I think that the fact is that whichever we will slow the process down, but that we ought to do the right thing, and that is get rid of the restriction.
And just on my discussion point on that, I think the commission and I urge the commission to reject this motion, and I urge the commission to vote on the deed restriction. I think we've had plenty opportunity to discuss the aspects of it. I know I've reached out to folks. We got a very thorough memo from the committee. And like Commissioner Gosselin said, we are at the timeline of trying to get this recommendation to OP and DENPED prior to the RFP coming out, which is coming out and moving very fast. So with that, I call for the vote. The motion is on to delay the vote. All those in favor of delaying the vote, raise your hand. 2. Commissioner Zeldin, if you're on the line, all those opposed of delaying the vote, raise your hand. 2, 3, 4. No abstentions.
Did Michael vote?
He's not on a meeting. So I call for the vote on the recommendations for the commission to adopt the recommendation of RACE and the recommendation of ZDD.
Just a quick point of order. I misread the RACE recommendation. It talked about our previous vote about affordable housing as background to a proposal. So that is not the 50%. The deeply affordable housing aspect is not in. It will not be in this.
So as a clarification, when Commissioner Gosselin first made the motion, so that is not part of the recommendation of RACE. The past ANC's task force on racism recommendation. The only aspects to RACE's recommendation is 1, to join RACE in recognizing that this deed restriction is an unfortunate artifact of our history, and 2, explore all options that could remove this restriction to allow for affordable housing. Those are the 2 points on RACE. So with that, I call for the vote. All those in favor. Thank you. All those in favor of the 2 recommendations of the committee, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, and I'm gonna ask that we suspend committee reports and ask the committees to put those reports on, send them to me if you have them in writing. I'll publish them on the website. We'll also publish them on the listserv. And really quickly, do we have a secretary or treasurer's report since we put everything in a consent agenda? That's what I thought. Awesome. And in terms of possible items.
Well, I was gonna say one word, and that is that this is a tough job, and I would welcome help from any other commission, especially tonight's meeting. I don't know how the heck I'm gonna write it up, so I don't know how much longer I can stay doing this without help, so please help. Okay, that's it.
Possible items for May 22nd, discussion of capital bike share locations. Update from Dr. Carrie Burkhardt, and I know you did not have the presentation from DC Smart Street Lighting on the agenda for tonight. Hopefully, we can get that on the agenda tomorrow. And I'm gonna ask that we also suspend with community announcements, commissioner announcements, so that we're on time. And with that, I'm adjourning the meeting at 8:51.
And
Thank you,
could
community.
you help us put up chairs because we're
Thank
running.
you for being here.